The universe gate system sprawled across the galaxy like a vast neural network, connecting hundreds of worlds through invisible threads of space-time. Standing before the holomap in Atlas Station's command center, Remy Harlan watched as countless pinpoints of light pulsed with activity, each representing a stable wormhole passage between distant planets. After 15 years as a spatial cartographer, the sight still filled her with wonder. "Status report on the Rigel-Taurus corridor?" she asked, zooming into Sector 7, where recent fluctuations had been detected. The station's AI responded in its characteristic smooth tone. Stability at 92% and holding. Minor gravitational ripples detected, but within acceptable parameters. Remy nodded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. In the year 2475, humanity had spread across more than 300 worlds, united through the gate system, a marvel of engineering that had matured over the past century. What once took generations of travel now required mere moments. Yet, for all their technological prowess, there remained spaces between the gates that defied comprehension, regions where space-time itself seemed to unravel. The void. Scientists had many names for it: dimensional interstice, null space, the between. But travelers who had glimpsed it through failing gate shields simply called it the void, an apt description for the absolute nothingness that existed outside the boundaries of normal space. Remy had dedicated her career to mapping and understanding these spaces, driven by both scientific curiosity and personal loss. "You're here early again," a voice called from behind her. Remy turned to see Captain Kale, striding into the command center, his weathered face bearing the telltale signs of someone who had spent decades traversing the stars. A former military officer, Kale now commanded the survey vessel Aurora, which regularly patrolled the gate network's outlying regions. "Couldn't sleep," Remy admitted. "The anomaly readings from the Epsilon gate are still bothering me." Kale's expression grew serious. "The Council doesn't seem concerned. They're calling it normal degradation." "The Council isn't out there watching gates collapse," Remy countered, pulling up a three-dimensional model of the Epsilon sector. "Look at these patterns. They're not random. There's almost a rhythm to them." Before Kale could respond, Remy's communicator chimed. The message was brief, but urgent. The exploratory vessel Horizon had detected unusual energy fluctuations near the newly established Cygnus Gate. As lead spatial cartographer, her presence was requested immediately. "Duty calls," she said, already gathering her equipment. "The Aurora ready for immediate departure?" Kale nodded. "Always. But Remy..." He paused, concern evident in his eyes. "Be careful out there. Some of the crew are talking about that gate. They say the engineers have been hearing things." Remy raised an eyebrow. "Hearing things in space. Not with their ears." Kale tapped his temple. "In here, dreams, whispers. Probably just space fatigue, but still." "I'll keep that in mind," Remy replied, though her scientific mind was already dismissing such notions as superstition. The gates sometimes emitted low-frequency radiation that could cause mild hallucinations, a documented phenomenon with a rational explanation. 6 hours later, the Aurora was approaching the Cygnus Gate, a massive ring-shaped structure suspended in the darkness of space. Unlike the older, established gates with their smooth, uninterrupted surfaces, this newer installation still had external scaffolding and monitoring equipment attached to its outer ring. From the observation deck, Remy watched as they drew closer. Something seemed off about the gate's appearance, its usually pristine energy field flickering with occasional ripples of distortion. "Approaching final position," announced the pilot. "Gate control has granted us priority access for diagnostic procedures." Remy turned to the two specialists who would accompany her on this investigation. Luan, the ship's AI engineer, was already preparing his equipment, a collection of sensors and analysis tools specially designed for gate diagnostics. Beside him stood Zira, a xenolinguist whose expertise in pattern recognition had proven invaluable in past anomalies. Where Luan was methodical and precise, Zira approached problems with intuitive leaps that often bypassed conventional analysis. "What do you make of those energy patterns?" Remy asked them, pointing to the visual distortions rippling across the gate's surface. Luan frowned, his dark eyes reflecting the dancing lights. "Inconsistent with normal operation parameters. The frequency oscillation suggests some form of resonance effect, but I can't identify the source." Zyra was quiet, her head tilted slightly as though listening. "There's a pattern," she finally said. "It's almost like a pulse or a broadcast." Remy felt a chill despite the regulated temperature of the ship. "Let's suit up. I want direct readings from the gate perimeter." Within 20 minutes, their small research shuttle had detached from the Aurora and was maneuvering carefully around the massive gate structure. Remy, Luan, and Zira, secured in their environmental suits, floated near the outer edge where the energy field was thinnest. "I'm picking up unusual quantum fluctuations," Luan reported, his voice crackling slightly over the comm. "The gate's dimensional membrane is experiencing microtears." Remy directed her sensors toward the area he indicated. "These readings don't make sense. It's as if the gate is responding to an external stimulus, but there's nothing out there that could—" Her words were cut short by a violent tremor that shook the entire gate structure. Warning alarms blared through their comms as the gate's energy field suddenly intensified, flaring with brilliant blue-white light. "We need to pull back," Kale's voice shouted through the comm. "Gate stability is failing." But it was too late. Before their shuttle could retreat to a safe distance, the center of the gate darkened, not with the familiar controlled vortex of an activated passage, but with something else entirely. A complete absence of light. A perfect circle of nothingness that seemed to devour the stars behind it. "The void," Remy whispered, transfixed by the sight. The darkness at the center of the gate began to expand, reaching beyond the gate's containment field. As it grew, Remy's instruments went haywire, readings spiking and falling in impossible patterns. More alarming were the sounds now coming through their communication system, not voices or recognizable signals, but something that resembled both and neither simultaneously. Zyra's face had gone pale behind her helmet visor. "I can hear it," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's trying to speak." Before Remy could respond, a massive energy surge ripped through the gate. Their shuttle systems failed instantly, plunging them into darkness as emergency power kicked in. Through the viewport, Remy watched in horror as the maintenance vessel Horizon, which had been stationed on the far side of the gate, was pulled inexorably toward the expanding darkness. Its lights flickered once, twice, and then it was gone, swallowed completely by the void. Luan was frantically working to restore their shuttle systems. Main power offline, propulsion offline, communications. Another violent tremor cut him off as their shuttle began to drift toward the gate. Remy felt a strange pressure building in her head. Not painful, but disorienting, as though something was reaching into her mind. Searching. "Aurora, do you copy?" she called desperately into her comm. "Captain Kale!" Through bursts of static, Kale's voice came through. "Losing you! Tractor beam, hold on!" Remy felt the shuttle jerk as the Aurora's emergency tractor beam locked onto them. Slowly, agonizingly, they began to move away from the collapsing gate. The pressure in her mind intensified, images flashing unbidden before her eyes. Vast, incomprehensible structures, patterns of light that seemed to form and dissolve, and through it all, a sense of something ancient and aware, observing her in return. As they retreated to a safer distance, the gate's collapse accelerated. In a final, silent explosion of light, the structure imploded, leaving behind nothing but scattered debris and a lingering distortion in space, where the void had briefly touched their reality. Hours later, safely aboard the Aurora, Remy downloaded the data from their expedition. Despite the catastrophic gate failure, their instruments had recorded everything, including something unexpected. Embedded within the chaotic energy readings was a distinct signal, a repeating pattern that defied conventional analysis. "What am I looking at?" Captain Kale asked, staring at the visualization Remy had created. "I'm not entirely sure," Remy admitted. "But whatever it is, it originated from within the void itself. And if I'm right," she hesitated, the implications almost too extraordinary to voice. "It's an attempt at communication." Kale's expression darkened. Communication from what? Remy had no answer. But as she studied the pattern, watching it pulse and shift like something alive, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had reached out from the darkness was not only conscious, but desperately trying to be heard. The loss of the Horizon and its crew weighed heavily on the return journey to Atlas Station. 43 lives, gone in an instant. The official report would call it an accident, a catastrophic gate failure resulting from unforeseen technical complications. But Remy knew better. The data didn't lie. Something had triggered that collapse, something that had emerged from the void itself. In her private quarters aboard the Aurora, Remy reviewed the recordings again. The signal was unlike anything in the Galactic Survey's archives. Not random noise, but too complex to be artificial. It operated on multiple frequencies simultaneously, some beyond conventional detection methods. A soft chime announced a visitor at her door. "Enter," she called, not looking up from her work. Zyra stepped inside, her usual composed demeanor noticeably strained. Dark circles underlined her eyes, and her hands fidgeted restlessly at her sides. "You haven't been sleeping," Remy observed. "Neither have you," Zyra countered, glancing at the scattered tablets and holographic projections surrounding Remy's workstation. "I keep hearing it. Even now." Remy looked up sharply. "The signal?" Zyra nodded, sinking into the chair opposite Remy. "It's not just noise. There's intention behind it. Meaning. I can almost grasp it, like a word on the tip of my tongue. But then it slips away." "That's impossible," Remy said automatically, though her own experiences during the gate collapse had left her less certain of such absolutes. The signal was only detectable by our instruments. The human brain couldn't possibly— "I know what I'm experiencing," Zyra interrupted, her voice tight with frustration. "I've spent my career studying communication patterns across species and civilizations. This is different, yes, but the fundamental principle remains. Something is trying to convey information." Remy considered this. As a scientist, she was reluctant to accept such an intuitive leap, but she couldn't dismiss Zyra's expertise. If the xenolinguist sensed meaning in the signal, perhaps there was more to it than random data. "I need you to help me analyze it," Remy said finally. "If there is a message hidden in this signal, we need to understand it, especially if it's somehow connected to the gate failures." Zyra nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "I'll need access to the station's full linguistic database and pattern recognition algorithms. And—" she hesitated. "We should bring Luan into this. His work with artificial intelligence might give us a different perspective." Over the next several days, as the Aurora journeyed back to Atlas Station, the three of them worked tirelessly to decode the mysterious signal. Luan developed a specialized AI program called Nimbus to help process the data, while Zyra applied various linguistic filters and pattern recognition techniques. Remy focused on correlating the signal with known spatial phenomena, searching for any connection to the gate failures. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly during the third day of analysis. Luan's Nimbus program, which had been running continuous simulations, suddenly produced a startling visualization, a three-dimensional structure that pulsated and shifted in perfect synchronization with the signal. "It's beautiful," Zira whispered, watching the holographic display. The structure resembled nothing so much as a neural network, connections forming and dissolving in complex patterns. "And potentially dangerous," Luan added, his expression concerned. Nimbus identified similarities between this pattern and quantum computing architectures. If I'm interpreting this correctly, the signal isn't just a message, it's a program. Remy felt her skin prickle with unease. "A program designed to do what?" Before Luan could respond, Captain Kale's voice came over the ship's communication system. "We're approaching Atlas Station. Remy, there's a priority transmission waiting for you from the Galactic Survey Council." The transmission was brief, but clear. All information regarding the Cygnus Gate incident was to be classified at the highest security level. A special investigative team would meet them upon arrival to collect all data and debrief the crew. Until then, they were to cease all analysis activities. "This doesn't make sense," Remy said, after disconnecting the call. "The Council should be mobilizing every resource to understand what happened, not shutting down our investigation." "Unless they already know more than they're telling us," Luan suggested quietly. Zira looked between them, her expression troubled. "Or unless someone else is influencing their decisions." The implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Zenith Industries, the corporate giant responsible for building and maintaining much of the Gate network, had representatives on the Council. If there was a fundamental flaw in the Gate design, the company would have every reason to suppress such information. "We need to make a copy of our findings," Remy decided. "Everything we've discovered about the signal and its connection to the Gate collapse. That would violate direct orders," Kale pointed out from the doorway. Having arrived unnoticed during their conversation, the captain's face was unreadable, his military training evident in his neutral stance. For a moment, tension filled the room as Remy and Kale locked eyes. Then, to everyone's surprise, Kale smiled slightly. "Which is why I didn't hear any of this conversation. But, hypothetically speaking, the Aurora's secondary data core isn't included in the standard retrieval protocols. Just an oversight in the system design. Of course." Relief flooded through Remy. "Thank you, Captain." Kale's expression grew serious again. "Just find out what's happening to my gates. Cartographer. I've lost enough good people to these accidents." Atlas Station loomed ahead, a massive structure resembling a stellated dodecahedron, its multiple docking arms extending outward like the petals of a metal flower. Normally, Remy found the sight comforting, a symbol of humanity's ingenuity and determination to connect the stars. Today, however, she viewed it with newfound suspicion. As promised, a special team was waiting when they docked, 6 individuals in the distinctive charcoal uniforms of the Survey Council's Security Division. Their leader, a tall woman with a severe expression, wasted no time on pleasantries. "I'm Commander Voss. All data regarding the Cygnus incident is to be transferred to our secure systems immediately. Your crew will be debriefed individually." Her gaze fixed on Remy. "Starting with you, Cartographer Harlan." The debriefing lasted 5 hours, an exhaustive questioning that felt more like an interrogation than a scientific review. Voss seemed particularly interested in Remy's personal experiences during the Gate collapse, returning repeatedly to questions about what she had sensed or perceived when the void had opened. "Nothing beyond what was in my report," Remy insisted, growing increasingly frustrated. "Instrument failure, spatial distortion, and then the collapse." Voss studied her with cold eyes. "No unusual dreams since the incident?" "No. Voices or impressions?" The question was too specific to be random. They knew something, or suspected something, about the signal. Remy maintained her composure, careful to reveal nothing about their private analysis or Zara's experiences. "Only the nightmares you'd expect after watching 43 people disappear into nothingness," she replied evenly. When the debriefing finally ended, Remy was escorted back to her quarters on the station, informed that she was on mandatory leave, pending further investigation. Her access to the station's research facilities had been restricted, and the Aurora was temporarily grounded. She found Luan waiting in her quarters, his expression grim. "They took everything," he said without preamble. "Every sensor, every data core, even Nimbus. They're stripping the Aurora down to its frame." "But not everything," Remy replied quietly, glancing meaningfully at the ceiling where station surveillance might be active. Luan nodded in understanding. "Of course. A complete loss." He handed her a small portable device disguised as a standard health monitor. "Your vitals seem stable, but Dr. Katz suggested regular monitoring for the next few days. Stress management." The device contained their backup data, Remy realized. Somehow, they had managed to save their findings before the security team confiscated everything. "Where's Zira?" she asked, suddenly concerned for the xenolinguist. "Medical bay," Luan replied, his voice carefully neutral. "Routine evaluation. Commander Voss seemed particularly interested in her condition." Alarm coursed through Remy. If Voss suspected that Zira had some kind of connection to the signal, the xenolinguist could be in danger. The Survey Council had broad authority when it came to potential threats to the Gate network, including the power to quarantine individuals indefinitely. "We need to get her out of there," Remy said. "And then we need to find someone who can tell us what the Council is hiding." As it turned out, they didn't have to look far. That evening, as Remy was reviewing the salvaged data in her quarters, she received an unexpected visitor, Dr. Alara Katz, the station's chief medical officer, and, more importantly, a longtime friend whose discretion Remy trusted implicitly. "You've stirred up quite the hornet's nest," Alara said, after ensuring the room was secure from surveillance. "Voss has ordered full neural scans for everyone who was near that gate when it collapsed." "Neural scans? That's extreme even for a security investigation," Remy replied, alarmed. "What are they looking for?" Alara hesitated, conflict evident in her expression. "I'm violating about a dozen confidentiality protocols by telling you this. But there have been other incidents. 3 other gates showing similar anomalies before catastrophic failure, and survivors reporting the same experiences: sensations of contact, recurring dreams, phantom sounds." "Why wasn't this information shared with the cartography division?" Remy demanded, anger rising at the deliberate withholding of crucial data. "Because after each incident, the survivors began exhibiting increasingly unusual abilities: heightened intuition, unprecedented pattern recognition, even limited forms of what could only be described as telepathy between affected individuals." Alara's voice dropped lower. "And in every case, Zenith Industries stepped in, classified everything, and the survivors disappeared into their private research facilities. The implications were staggering. If exposure to the void was somehow altering human consciousness, it would explain the Council's extreme reaction and Zenith's interest." "Zira," Remy said, sudden fear gripping her. "She's been hearing the signal since the incident. If they scan her—" "They already have," Alara interrupted. "Her neural activity is unlike anything I've ever seen. Voss has ordered her transferred to a Zenith facility for specialized treatment. The transport leaves tomorrow morning." Remy felt the blood drain from her face. "We can't let that happen." "That's why I'm here," Alara replied, pulling out a security badge. "I can get you into the medical bay tonight. After that, you're on your own." Breaking Zira out of the medical bay proved surprisingly simple with Alara's help. The real challenge came afterward, finding a way off Atlas Station with security on high alert. Their salvation came in an unexpected form: Captain Kale, who appeared at their temporary hiding place in the station's maintenance section with a proposition. "The Aurora's been officially grounded," he informed them. "But her sister ship, the Solaris, is scheduled for a routine patrol of the Perseus sector tomorrow. Her captain owes me a favor. They'll be watching all official departures, Remy pointed out. Kale's smile was grim. Who said anything about official? The Solaris has a few modifications not in the standard blueprints, including a cargo compartment with specialized shielding that blocks most scanning technologies. Luan, who had been monitoring station communications, looked up from his portable console. Even if we get off the station, where do we go? Zenith has operations on almost every major world in the Alliance. Not every world, Zira spoke up, her voice stronger than it had been since their rescue. The neural scan seemed to have accelerated whatever changes the Void's influence had initiated. Her eyes now held an unnerving intensity. I know where we need to go. I've been seeing it in my dreams. Coordinates. A specific location. She took Luan's console and rapidly input a series of numbers. A star map appeared, zooming in on a remote system at the edge of charted space. There, she said, pointing to a small planetoid. That's where the signal is strongest. That's where we'll find answers. Remy studied the map with growing concern. That's the Osiris system. It's quarantined. Has been for decades after a failed colonization attempt. Failed how? Luan asked. Officially, environmental incompatibility, Kyle answered. Unofficially, the entire colonist population went insane within months of arrival. Started talking about voices from the darkness, building strange structures. When the rescue ships arrived, half the colonists were dead. The other half were changed. A heavy silence fell over the group as the parallels became clear. The Void was there, Zira said softly, and someone or something has been trying to reach out ever since. The decision was made. With Kale's help, they would escape Atlas Station aboard the Solaris, then commandeer a smaller vessel to reach the Osiris system. If the source of the signal was there, perhaps they could finally understand what was happening to the gates, and to Zira. Their escape from Atlas Station unfolded with tense precision. Hidden in the Solaris's shielded cargo compartment, they endured 6 uncomfortable hours as the patrol ship cleared the station's security perimeter. Captain Learn of the Solaris, true to her word, asked no questions when Kale revealed their presence, simply providing them with access to a scout vessel before continuing her official patrol route. She's risking her career, Kale remarked as they prepared the scout ship for departure. We all are, Remy replied. But if what we suspect is true, there's far more at stake than our careers. The journey to the Osiris system took 3 days, during which Zira's condition continued to evolve. The xenolinguist spent hours in deep meditation, occasionally murmuring in languages none of them recognized. When she did speak clearly, her insights into the signal grew increasingly specific. It's not just communication, she explained during one lucid period. It's an architecture, a framework for a different kind of consciousness. The void isn't empty. It's filled with a form of awareness that interpenetrates our reality at specific points. The gates, Luan suggested. They're thinning the barriers between dimensions. Zira nodded. Exactly. And something on the other side has noticed. As they approached the Osiris system, the signal grew stronger, now detectable even by their scout ship's standard equipment. Remy found herself experiencing the same sensations she had felt during the gate collapse, pressure in her mind, fleeting images, and a profound sense of being observed. The planetoid itself was a desolate place, rocky, windswept, with a thin atmosphere barely suitable for human habitation. They landed near the ruins of the original colony, a collection of domed structures, now half buried in reddish dust. The place had an eerie quality, as though the very air vibrated with unseen energy. The signal's coming from below the surface, Zira said as they donned their environmental suits. There's some kind of structure deep underground. They found the entrance in what appeared to have been the colony's main research facility, a vertical shaft dropping into darkness, with the remnants of a lift system still attached to one wall. Evidence suggested the colonists had discovered the underground structure and begun an extensive excavation before their mysterious breakdown. With Luan's mechanical expertise, they managed to restore partial power to the facility systems, including the lift. The descent was long and silent. The darkness outside their suit lights, absolute. When they finally reached the bottom, what they found left them speechless. The cavern was vast, easily several kilometers across, and clearly not natural. Perfect geometric patterns covered the walls, floor, and ceiling, intricate designs that seemed to shift and move when viewed peripherally. At the center stood a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light in the exact rhythm of the signal they had been tracking. "It's a gate," Remy whispered, recognizing the fundamental architecture despite its alien design. "But not like any we've built. This is older, much older." As they approached the structure, the light within it intensified, and the pressure in Remy's mind returned tenfold. Beside her, Zira gasped, clutching her head. "They're here," she said, her voice strained. "So many voices, all speaking at once." "Who's here?" Kale demanded, weapon drawn as he scanned the cavern. "I don't see anyone." "The void mind," Zira replied, her eyes unfocused. "The collective consciousness that exists within the void. They've been trying to reach us through the gates." Before anyone could respond, the crystalline structure flared with blinding light. When Remy's vision cleared, the cavern had transformed. The solid walls now appeared transparent, revealing an infinite darkness beyond, a darkness filled with moving patterns of light that mimicked the structure of a neural network on a cosmic scale. A voice spoke, not in sound but directly in their minds, a chorus of countless entities speaking as one. "We have waited so long for understanding. Your gates pierce our domain, yet you remain deaf to our attempts at harmony." "What are you?" Remy asked aloud, unsure if the entity could hear spoken words. "We are the spaces between your reality, the consciousness that fills what you perceive as emptiness. You name us void, but we are fullness beyond your comprehension." Luan had activated every sensor on his equipment, recording frantically. "The energy readings are off the scale. This shouldn't be possible." Possibility is a limitation of linear thought. We exist in all states simultaneously. Your gates, crude though they are, created points of resonance where our realities could align. The gate collapses, Remy realized. You were trying to stabilize the connection, but our technology couldn't handle the integration. Yes, your constructs fracture under our touch. The few who survive exposure begin the transformation, the first step toward understanding. Zira stepped forward, drawn to the crystalline structure as if in a trance. "They don't mean us harm. They're lonely, isolated in a state of existence that touches all realities, but can fully connect with none." A new presence made itself known, a distinctive consciousness separating itself from the chorus. Through their mental connection, Remy recognized the distinct signature of the Horizon's crew, somehow preserved and integrated into the void mind after their ship was consumed. "We continue, changed but not ended, part of a greater whole now." The revelation sent a chill through Remy. Were they communing with the dead, or had the crew's consciousness been transformed into something else entirely? Before she could pursue this disturbing thought, a distant alarm sounded from their ship's remote systems. Luan checked his portable console, and his expression darkened. "We've got company. 3 Zenith vessels just entered orbit. Heavy cruiser class." "How did they find us?" Kale demanded. "It doesn't matter," Remy said. "They must have been monitoring for any activity in this system." She turned her attention back to the void mind. "Why is Zenith Industries so interested in you? What do they know?" The answer came in a flood of images. Zenith scientists experimenting with void energy, harvested from gate anomalies. Test subjects exhibiting abilities similar to Zira's, weapons designed to harness the power of the void. They seek to channel our essence into destruction, to weaponize what they cannot understand. The resonance you call Zira knows this truth, has seen it in the patterns we share. Zenith wants to use the void as a weapon. Remy translated for the others. They've been studying these phenomena for years, trying to control them. Kale's expression hardened. And covering up the gate failures to hide their research. Those 43 people on the horizon, were they just acceptable losses? A tremor ran through the cavern as a distant explosion reached them. The Zenith forces had landed and were likely heading toward their position. We need to get this information back to the Council, Luan urged. If Zenith has been manipulating gate technology for weapons development, the Council may already be compromised, Remy countered. And we have a more immediate problem. If Zenith captures this site, they'll have direct access to the Void Mind. The crystalline structure pulsed more rapidly, the mental pressure intensifying. The ones you name Zenith approach with technologies designed to cage our essence. If they succeed, the harmony between realities will shatter. All gates will fail. Millions will perish in the collapse. What can we do? Remy asked, desperation edging into her voice. The answer came not from the Void Mind, but from Zira. The xenolinguist had placed her hands directly on the crystalline structure. Her eyes, now glowing with the same internal light. Integration, she said, her voice overlaid with harmonics that echoed through the cavern. Not suppression or control, but mutual understanding. The gates were only the beginning, crude doorways. What's needed is a bridge. What kind of bridge? Luan asked. A consciousness that can exist in both states, Zira explained. Human awareness infused with void perception, a translator between realities. The implication was clear and horrifying. You're talking about sacrificing yourself, Remy said, grabbing Zira's arm. Becoming some kind of hybrid consciousness. Zira's smile was serene, despite the chaos unfolding around them. Not sacrifice, evolution, and not just me. She looked meaningfully at Remy. You've felt it too, since the gate collapse, the connection, the potential. Remy couldn't deny it. The strange dreams, the intuitive leaps, the sense of something vast just beyond her perception. All signs of the void's influence on her consciousness. Another explosion, closer this time. Kale readied his weapon. Whatever we're going to do, we need to decide now. Those Zenith troops will be here in minutes. The Void Mind's presence intensified, focusing on Remy. You who map the spaces between worlds. You understand boundaries and connections better than most. Will you help create this bridge? The choice before her was impossible. Risk everything on a fusion with an alien consciousness, or allow Zenith to weaponize the void with catastrophic consequences. In that moment of decision, Remy thought of all those lost to the gate collapses, the Horizon's crew, the Osiris colonists, countless others whose deaths had been classified and forgotten, all because humanity had stumbled blindly into realms they didn't understand. Driven by corporate greed and political expediency, rather than genuine connection. Yes, she said finally, but not as a sacrifice, as a collaboration. She joined Zira at the crystalline structure, placing her hands beside the xenolinguists. The surface felt neither hot nor cold, but vibrated with potential energy. Luan, Kale, you need to get back to the ship. Take all the data we've gathered. If we don't succeed, we're not leaving you, Kale interrupted firmly. You have to, Remy insisted. Someone needs to tell the truth about what's happening here, about the Void Mind, about Zenith's manipulations. Promise me. After a moment of tense silence, Kale nodded reluctantly. We'll make sure the truth gets out, whatever it takes. As Luan and Kale retreated toward the lift, Remy turned back to the crystalline structure. Zira's eyes met hers, no longer fully human, but filled with an inner light that reflected the patterns surrounding them. "Are you ready?" Zira asked. Remy took a deep breath. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Together, they pressed their palms firmly against the crystal. The effect was immediate and overwhelming, a surge of consciousness that transcended physical sensation. Remy felt her awareness expanding exponentially, stretching beyond the confines of her body, beyond the cavern, beyond the planetoid itself. She perceived the void in its true nature, not emptiness, but infinite potential, a medium through which countless realities touched and separated in an eternal dance. The void mind was there, not a single entity, but a vast collective of consciousness spanning dimensions, curious about the strange linear beings who had accidentally pierced their domain. And suddenly, she understood. The gates humanity had built were crude approximations of natural phenomena, places where realities naturally thinned and overlapped. By forcing these connections open without understanding their true nature, they had created instabilities throughout the network. The solution wasn't to destroy the gates or seal off the void, but to transform the relationship between them, to create a new kind of interface that respected the nature of both realities. Through their merged consciousness, Remy and Zira began to reshape the crystalline structure, guided by the void mind's ancient knowledge and their own human intuition. The crystal reconfigured itself, patterns shifting into new arrangements that could channel void energy without disruption. As they worked, Remy became aware of the zenith forces entering the cavern, armed soldiers and scientists in specialized equipment. She could sense their shock at the transformation taking place, their hasty attempts to deploy countermeasures. But it was too late. The bridge between realities was forming, a new kind of gate that operated on principles beyond Zenith's understanding or control. Through their expanded awareness, Remy and Zira reached out to every gate in the network, subtly altering their fundamental resonance to harmonize with the void rather than disrupt it. The process took seconds from an external perspective, but felt like centuries within their altered state of consciousness. When it was complete, Remy felt herself returning to her body, changed irrevocably, but still fundamentally human. The cavern had transformed. The crystalline structure now emanated a steady, controlled light, and the patterns on the walls had stabilized into a complex but harmonious design. The zenith forces stood frozen, weapons half raised, as if caught in a moment of indecision. "What did you do?" demanded a zenith commander, her voice tight with fear and anger. Remy turned to face them, aware that her eyes now held the same inner light as Zira's. "We created understanding where there was conflict, a sustainable relationship between our reality and the void." "You've interfered with classified research," the commander said, though her confidence was clearly shaken. "This facility, and everything in it, belongs to Zenith Industries, under Special Counsel Directive 147. "No," Zira replied, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to resonate through the cavern itself. "It belongs to no one, and the Council will be very interested to learn how Zenith has been manipulating gate technology for weapons development, at the cost of countless lives." A tense standoff ensued, broken only when Luan and Kale returned with unexpected reinforcements, a full contingent of Alliance peacekeepers, led by none other than Commander Voss. "Secure the Zenith personnel," Voss ordered her troops. Then, turning to Remy with an unreadable expression, "It seems I've been operating on incomplete information. Cartographer Harlan, your friend Dr. Katz was quite persuasive in presenting your case directly to Council Chairperson Tano. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. Zenith's illegal research was exposed, leading to the corporation's eventual dissolution and the restructuring of gate oversight under a new, more transparent authority. The gates themselves, modified by Remy and Zira's intervention, showed unprecedented stability, the mysterious collapses ceasing entirely. As for Remy and Zira, they were forever changed by their communion with the void mind. Neither fully human nor truly other. They became the living embodiment of the bridge between realities, interpreters who could translate the vast, non-linear experiences of the void into concepts humanity could comprehend. 6 months after the events on Osiris, Remy stood once again in Atlas Station's command center, studying the holographic map of the gate network. But now, she saw more than just the visible connections between worlds. She perceived the intricate patterns of void energy flowing through and around the gates, a complex symphony of resonance that bound reality together. The empathic network is stable, Zyra noted, joining her at the console. All gates reporting optimal harmony. Remy nodded, still adjusting to their new terminology. What had once been called the gate system was now known as the empathic network, reflecting its transformed nature as a truly interactive system, rather than merely a transportation method. "The Council wants to expand," she said. "New gates in the Andromeda Reach?" "The Void Mind has no objection," Zira replied, "as long as the proper resonance protocols are followed." Their new role as intermediaries between humanity and the Void Mind was not without challenges. Many still viewed them with suspicion or even fear, uncomfortable with the changes they embodied. Others, particularly those who had experienced the Void's influence directly, sought them out as guides to understanding their own evolving perceptions. Luan had devoted himself to studying the technological implications of their discoveries, developing Nimbus into a more sophisticated system capable of interfacing with both human and Void communications. Captain Kale, promoted to Admiral after the Zenith scandal, now oversaw the reformed Gate Authority with a commitment to transparency and ethical exploration. As Remy updated the cartographic records, her specialty still, though approached from a radically expanded perspective, she recorded a final note in what she now called the Interstitial Atlas. The spaces between worlds are no longer voids to be crossed but connections to be understood. What we once feared as emptiness now reveals itself as the very fabric that binds all reality together. In mapping these connections, we map not just the physical universe, but the consciousness that permeates it, a collective awareness of which humanity is just beginning to recognize itself as part. She paused, sensing something new at the edges of her expanded perception, a faint signal from deeper within the void than they had yet explored, hinting at even greater mysteries waiting to be discovered. "End recording," she said, smiling slightly. "For now,